Tyrese Haliburton carries the Pacers against the Toronto Raptors. One of his best games of the season. How he did it and how he has thrived since the All-Star break, and Myles Turner helps. Not a lot else went great. We'll talk about it all today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Thursday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today, woohoo, Tyrese Haliburton was tremendous as the Pacers beat the Raptors, get back on track, 3-1 homestand coming out of the All-Star break. Lots to discuss with Haliburton. A terrific game. One of his best performances in terms of carrying the Pacers this season. How he has turned things around post-All-Star, at least so far. We'll get into all that. Myles Turner, huge in this game. Obviously making threes is huge, but I have another little note about him that I want to point out. And then we'll talk about not anything else that went really well for the Pacers in this game. This looked like it was trending ugly, although they did give up their fewest points of the season. Their defense, pretty good in this one, but the story is Haliburton, and it's not even close. Dominant performance from the star guard. 12 of 15 from the field, 7 of 9 from three, hitting 4 threes in the first quarter. The Raptors hit 6 threes in the game. I mean, it was unbelievable how hot Tyrese Haliburton started this game. Heat checks were flying, deservedly so, and he goes 5 for 6 on his twos, and he had 3 rebounds, and he had 11 assists, and he had 3 steals, and he had 2 blocks, and he only had 1 turnover. He dominated this game. Basically every stretch of time he was on the floor too. Very poor bench game. Nembhard was running the second unit, did not have a good game, among, if not number one, worst of the season for him. TJ McConnell's out. Ray J. Dennis is playing rotation minutes. I mean, we'll talk about the not good stuff at the end of this. Like, they needed Haliburton to be awesome. They lost the minutes without him on the floor. They were -4 with Haliburton on the bench today, the Pacers were, but they won because he was so good all night. First half, the Pacers were so sloppy. I mean, they were really clunky for a lot of the game outside of Tyrese Haliburton. First quarter, 4 of 5, all threes, and 2 assists, +5. Him and Myles Turner were carrying. Second quarter of the game, Tyrese Haliburton, 5 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist, +6. Third quarter, second half, they really needed to get off the ground running. 4 of 4, 11 points, 4 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, +5. Fourth quarter, after a rocky start that made this look like it might be a game, he comes in 2 of 3, 4 assists, 5 points, +8, steadies the ship. Pacers win. Absolutely dominant performance. 33 and 11. What stars can do is elevate their team in a game like this. And Tyrese Haliburton did that. Not a lot was working for the Pacers in this game, right? They couldn't really get Siakam going. It took a while for him to, Siakam's stat line ended up looking good. A lot of that came late. I already mentioned that Nembhard struggled. Nesmith did pitch in. He hit 2 threes, but I thought Nesmith's primary impact in this game came on the defensive end. And the bench in general really struggled outside of, I thought, a really nice game from Ben Shepherd. Like, anybody needed to pick up this team. And 11 of the Pacers' 28 assists came from Haliburton. And he had 33 points. No one else even reached 20. And that's what made this game so standoutish to me. And something we were discussing on press row during the game was this the most Tyrese Haliburton has carried the Pacers in a game this season? Really put them on his back and done a star kind of, think Siakam versus Phoenix, right? He carried them in Phoenix. I mean, that was a ridiculous game. Siakam against the Clippers, his 37-point game against the Pistons, right? He's had those kind of nights. So I went back through all of Tyrese Haliburton's 30-point games. For example, he had 30 points in that Pistons game that I just mentioned where Siakam had 37. Right. So clearly he had a lot of help as they won. They played Philly in mid-December. Tyrese Haliburton, one of his better games of the season, 32 points, 11 assists. Pascal had 23. Obi Toppin had 20, right? Other guys pitched in and had significant nights. He had 33 against the Heat, the first game of this calendar year, 21 from Myles Turner, really efficient Siakam game. They got good bench performances that night. Jarris Walker was pretty good, right? He had 35 against the Knicks. 26 from Turner, 38 from Mathurin, right? Other guys helping. There are games, I think there are 2 other games where Haliburton hit close to this level of carrying the Pacers to a win. One was the Celtics game late December last year, their second win over the Celtics this year after they lost the first round, where he was cooking inside the arc, right? That was a very significant game in my head for him this season. He had 10 twos. I think only the second time of his career he did that. He had 31 that night. Siakam and Nembhard were the second leading scorers for the Pacers. They both had 17. He had 7 assists, no turnovers in that game. Really balanced attack from the starters in general. They were all at 13 plus, and Jarris had 12. But that one, he was tremendous. If you remember watching that game, he was just absolutely sensational. That was close. And the other one was when they beat the Pelicans in late November, when the Pacers kind of got their win streak going, when they survived Elfrid Payton. He had 34 that night. Turner was second in scoring with 17, and then Siakam 14. That's probably the closest proxy. And that's actually perfect because the Pelicans aren't very good, and the Pacers scraped that one out. And the final score says the Pacers beat the Raptors by 20 in this game. They scraped this out. It was like a single-digit game until the last couple minutes, and they deserve credit for dominating the fourth quarter. Regardless, this is probably only the second or third time the entire season that Tyrese Haliburton put the Pacers on his back. And on a night they weren't playing well, it's probably only the second time he's done it and said, no, we're not losing. We are not losing this game. And he did it right away. I mean, the Pacers stunk in the first quarter. Stunk, right? And we'll talk about some of the stuff they did poorly in this game. They were lucky to be winning at the end of the first period of this game. They were lucky to be winning ever in this game. At halftime of the game, the Pacers had made 7 threes. Tyrese Haliburton had 5 of them. Myles Turner had the other 2. Everybody else was 0 for 11 from 3 in this game. The first quarter, the Pacers were up, I believe, 26-24. Yes, at the end of that quarter. Haliburton had 12 points. That's half the Raptors total. Myles Turner had 6. The rest of the Pacers combined had 8 points, and they had those 8 points on 2 for 9 shooting, right? 1 made from Obi Toppin and 1 made from Pascal Siakam. Like, the Pacers got nothing going in the first quarter, and they had 9 turnovers, and they gave up 4 offensive rebounds to the Raptors. And then in the second quarter, it was much of the same, with Siakam doing a little better, but he missed 4 shots. And they got nice contributions from a little bit of nice stuff from Ben Mathurin, right? They had nothing going in the first half offensively besides Tyrese Haliburton. It was sensational. And they needed every single part of it. And this has been a significant stretch for him, continuing a pretty good run of play since the All-Star break. He was unstoppable in this game, primarily from 3. The jump shot was there. He hit more threes than the Raptors team. He had 7 threes. The Raptors had 6. That's sensational. One of his better games of the season since the All-Star break. Thank you, Eddie Garrison, friend of the pod, Pacers Radio Network, 107.5 The Fan, for getting it all together. 25.8 points per game. This is 4 games. I'm assuming that's 0.75. 11.75 assists per game. 2.5 steals per game. Shooting 63.2% from the field. 52.6% from 3. Has not missed a free throw. 3 consecutive double-doubles. The Pacers have only lost once. He is hooping right now. Hooping. His best stretch of the season. We're going to talk about why in the second segment, but this is significant. I don't know that it will last. His season has been extremely roller coastery. Extremely roller coastery. He is about to play in Miami, where he has had tons of good games. Miami has been his place. That doesn't mean it will be again, but it has been. This is what they need from him right now. Siakam has not been efficient of late. You know, down for him, a down stretch is like scoring 18 instead of 20. But he hasn't played as well. McConnell's out. Nembhard is having a rough go of it right now. I think Nembhard needs a night off, honestly. They need Tyrese Haliburton to be sensational to keep winning, and he absolutely has been. And he carried the Pacers with his three-point shooting, with his early offense, with his consistent play, with finishing and wiggle inside the arc, setting up his teammates on a night where nobody had it from a jump shooting perspective except for Myles Turner and kind of Aaron Nesmith. They needed him to do everything to keep their offense rolling, and he did. How did he change his season a little bit? Why does he look faster? I mentioned that on my podcast talking about the Clippers game. He looked faster in that third quarter. He had 14 points that quarter. Is there something to this? Oh, yes, there is. We'll talk about that, other good stuff from this game, and plenty more from Pacers Raptors coming up here on Locked On Pacers. Before we get to that, though, we need to talk about FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you missed the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. You can use FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. If you're backing your team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, never feel like you missed your chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Make your second listen Locked On Raptors, because you can hear about the Raptors on the back-to-back, and you love Sean Woodley. He's one of the best. Love chatting with him. And the Raptors are spunky. And usually the Pacers kryptonite. Look, this doesn't mean anything. The Raptors aren't actually good. But the Pacers did get over a bugaboo. They did not play well against the Raptors this season or last season. They lost to the Raptors without Scotty Barnes earlier this season. Winning by 20 does mean something in this game to me, even if the Raptors stink, especially without Scotty Barnes. They got it done this time. Haliburton's been amazing since the break. I just named the stats courtesy of Eddie Garrison. And I wondered this when he wasn't named an all-star. You know, the glass half full view of that would be time off. Time off. I think Eddie said it on this podcast, actually. Time off for the first time for him in a long time. Told us today he went to Mexico and he got to detach. And I know that sounds like nothing, like lots of NBA players take vacations during All-Star break, but think about Haliburton's life since joining the Pacers, right? That first full season here, the All-Star, second full season here, All-Star, right? 22-23. And that season ends. He has some off-season time. That's probably his last significant gap of basketball. And he was a little bit recovering then, but not really. Then he plays in the World Cup, and that ends in early September 23. Then he plays 2023-24, an all-NBA season that goes all the way to the conference finals. Then he plays in the Olympics, and in that summer before and after the Olympics, he's rehabbing the hamstring. And then this season starts. So from basically pre-2023 World Cup to now, like over a year and a half, he has had like very little break, like detachment, right? And it's not like the total package. I'm sure he's had some away time from the game. But for a guy who earlier this season talked about finding the joy in basketball, like I think that mattered a lot to him. And he talked about it in Mexico, you know, travel with his girlfriend, watching The Wire, right? Getting through The Wire, loving that. And reading a book from his trainer, Drew Hanlon, right? I truly think like that helped him a lot. I'm not going to pretend to read his mind. I'm not going to pretend to be some psychic or something. We did talk to him about it after the game, if you watch the Pacers post-game press conference, but no, this stuff matters. This mental part of the game matters. It's not lost on me that Siakam, who didn't have a break, may have also needed one, right? Like the All-Star break is a big deal for everyone. And so I think that this is a big deal for Haliburton to actually have this, especially today. Coming in questionable, he thought he wasn't going to play, found out about 4:30 that he was actually cleared to go through this with his groin thing, and then just was able to flow right into it and play really well. And he's played very well since the break. The ball movement's been there. Like the guys are making passes or shots from his passes. He himself is making shots, which obviously makes everything look easier. He skipped today. When's the last time you saw a Tyrese Haliburton skip celebration come out? And again, he hasn't carried them to a win in over 2 months, right? Since that Celtics game, you could say, in late December. And he hasn't had a game that felt like this one since that Pelicans game in late November, right? We'll see if it maintains, because that's what his season has been about. Some good stretches and then, a little bit of fall off. But this is significant to me because of all the factors surrounding it, especially today. The fact that he truly carried them in a way that we have not seen in a long time. I think that's very significant. Speaking of significant things in this game, Myles Turner. Whoo! Sheesh. I keep calling this a carry from Tyrese Haliburton. It kind of was. But the same plus minus from Myles Turner, who 18 points on 8 shots. Wow. Myles Turner, very good in this game. Reminded me a lot of that Pistons game that he played in Detroit last month, I believe, January. 5 for 5 from three. The only other guy who could get a three to go. Very significant in this particular matchup, right? The Raptors, for all the problems they've given the Pacers, Jakob Poeltl's part of it. His defense is relatively impactful. Like, he has size. He's very good at the angles. If you can draw him away, it opens up a lot of the game. And early in this one, I thought a story was going to be how often the Pacers were taking threes. I mean, a crazy percentage of their shots were threes are in this game. I think they took 2 twos in the first 11 minutes of the game. And they were all open threes. It was fine, but they weren't able to make them outside of Haliburton and Turner. And so I wondered how this would go, the way the Raptors want to defend. They want to cut off the rim. They want to get back in transition. They have a style that is very kryptonite for the Pacers, which has been the case for years. Turner hitting those threes and just stretching out Poeltl a little bit went a long way in eventually getting the Pacers shot diet not back where it needed to be. It wasn't bad. It wasn't wrong, but more in line with what you'd expect. It helped them kind of get rolling a little bit after a slower start. And so Turner was really good in general, right? 5 for 5 from deep is huge. Hit a 2-point shot, which was a dunk. A very nice one in this game. 10 rebounds. A game after everybody wrongly, I think. I mean, 2 rebounds is too few. I said that, but wrongly pointed the finger at squarely him for the Pacers' rebounding struggles. Against Denver, he had 2 blocks. They dominated in his minutes, right? When he was out there, the Pacers were playing very well. Thomas Bryant didn't struggle necessarily, but you didn't feel his impact as much in this one. You really felt it with Turner. He was pretty much the only other good thing going for the Pacers in this game. He was very good in the pick and pop, and it really opened up the Pacers offense the way they want. Something I've noticed, though, that I actually asked him about after the game is I feel like, and I talked to Derek Kramer about this, and so I'm going to use his name specifically. Sorry, Derek, if you don't want this conversation aired out. We both believe that since mid-December-ish, since the NBA Cup ended, that this is probably the best 2 months of Myles Turner defense in the last 2 seasons, maybe 3 seasons, right? He obviously used to be at a higher level than this, but it's really felt like he's taken a step forward compared to what he was earlier this season and last season on the end of the floor. Pacers defensive rating is 2.5 points per 100 possessions better with him out there this season. And their offensive rating is obviously better with him out there. He fits very well with their star players. But I felt that noticeably be a thing for him, and I asked him about it after the game. He attributes that to better connection with his teammates in terms of what it takes to defend. A 2-man action is different with every player, and he feels like he's got that down, right? It requires different things to defend a pick and roll when he's paired with Andrew Nembhard versus Haliburton versus everybody else. And that's where he feels like he's been better, and they've had some slight defensive tweaks along the way. But I feel like he's noticeably been better. He almost had a nasty block in this game that was called a goaltend. It was so close on the cylinder. He just looks a little more crisp, a little more active and alert. And with the Pacers in general being a better defensive team since whenever Nembhard returned, mid-December, whatever cutoff time you want to use, that also helps him. When guys are doing better on the perimeter, better in their own coverages, it helps Myles Turner, who is very often used too much as a crutch defensively, be better on that end. He was quite good in this game, and they needed him to be. If you made me pick a third player that I would say had a good game, again, Siakam's stat line, a little misleading. It took him a while to get going. I think the answer to me would be Ben Sheppard, who ends up playing 29 minutes and 12 seconds in this game, almost eclipsing Turner for third most minutes on the team. Rick Carlisle, so often this calendar year and really the last 2-3 months, since Sheppard returned from injury, right, loves to, in moments of chaos or panic or just a game is changing its dynamic ever so slightly, just slam. I call it slamming the Ben Sheppard button. Boom, he calls him up off the bench, get him in the game, get something familiar out there, and it usually helps. That kind of player, high effort, high motor, can guard the ball, good team defender, doesn't make many mistakes, and can usually shoot it, although hasn't of late as much. He missed both his threes in this game, is going to give you impact. He put the ball on the floor tonight a few times in meaningful ways too. Sheppard, 4 points, that's it. You're not going to feel that, but 5 boards, 3 assists, a block in this one. He was +7. I thought he was the most impactful player off the bench for the Pacers today, and what made him really helpful. And Nesmith was good at this stuff too. I think Nesmith is also a good contributor for my third most important player today. They both defended RJ Barrett really well. Nesmith did as well, and Nesmith actually did hit 2 threes. I suppose they both count here. Nesmith had 4 turnovers that were kind of brutal. Everybody on the Pacers struggled with that. RJ Barrett killed the Pacers this season. I think he was averaging 30 points a game against them entering the day. Like, they needed to do better, loading up on him, making his life hard. And Barrett did miss 5 threes, but he went 5 for 15 in general and had 2 turnovers. Minus 15 was RJ Barrett in this game. Nesmith and Ben Shepherd did a great job making his life harder, both on rim attacks and on jumpers. And that was really significant in shifting this game the Pacers' way in a way that was really difficult for them in earlier contests against the Raptors. So a lot of credit to Ben Shepherd today, and he continues to be a guy the Pacers really like to rely on. And if you're out there and you barely touch the ball and you can still be pretty impactful, you're going to get a lot of minutes. And he did so in this game, by far leading the team in bench minutes. A couple more things to talk about from this game. Not many of them are positive. This was gross. I mean, this was not a pretty game. Pacers defense was particularly solid, though, giving up their fewest points of the season. A couple more notes to get to close out Pacers Raptors. Before we do any of that, though, let's talk about Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. The privileges, the very privileged, are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3% plus. You also get 4% APY on your cash and non-retirement accounts. That's over 8 times the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risks. Rate is subject to change. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 per month for 1 year from first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to Robinhood.com/boost. Over 8 times the national average savings. Account interest rate claim is based on data from the FDIC as of November 18th, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC. Member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. Back here on Locked On Pacers, thanks for making this your first listen today and every single day. Make your second listen Locked On Timberwolves. They made some moves. Jalen Clark got promoted. Bones Highland got a 2-way. Or Locked On Nets. They signed Kendall Brown, ex-Pacer, to a 2-way. Recently, the buyout market is forming. We'll talk about that later this week, most likely, as the Pacers do have a roster spot still. But those two teams have made some early moves involving 2-ways, which could be related to what the Pacers may or may not do. We'll see. Let's close this one out. Pacers Raptors. Look, this ends in a 20-point win. If you look at this game later, you will see that the Pacers won by 20. They were the better team. They deserved to win. They did not play 20 points better than the Raptors. And boy, oh boy, did they play kind of bad at times. This was, I believe, a 7 or 8 point game in the middle of the fourth quarter, like a 7-point game at halftime. Raptors were winning in both the first and second quarters, and the Pacers kind of beat themselves. They did some ugly stuff early. 10 turnovers in the first 12.5 minutes for the Pacers. 9 in the first quarter. 9 first quarter turnovers. 4 from Nembhard, 1 from Shepherd, 1 from Mathurin, 1 from Haliburton, 2 from Nesmith. Ugh, some painful ones in there. It was tough for the Pacers, who hit 6 of their 12 threes and were barely clinging to a lead in the first quarter. They could not get out of their own way. Their defense was not very good that period either. Orlando Robinson was making his hay on the offensive glass. Mogbo was getting rolling. Quickly was getting to the rim a few times. I mean, Grady Dick didn't score in the first quarter, but his jumper got going in the second quarter. Jakob Poeltl finished a few plays. Like, it just felt, it was such a grindy game. Second quarter, the Pacers defense stepped up big after an early timeout, but they had a turnover right at the beginning of that quarter. That was ugly. This is their second straight high turnover game for a team that has prided themselves in the possession battle, and they lead the league in lowest turnover rate right now. They cannot have games like this. They're lucky that, one, they defended very well. 91 is the fewest points they've allowed all season. Some of that was the Raptors, 6 of 27 from deep and 18 turnovers themselves. Some of that was good defense from the Pacers, like Nesmith, like Shepherd, like Turner. They do deserve credit. It's not like 91 just happens. But the Raptors, the Raptors didn't play very well. But the Pacers also, saved themselves with that defense because they were rough on offense with those 19 turnovers, and they could not get anything going. Siakam really struggled until, the fourth quarter of this one. He hit 2 for 3 in the fourth to save is such a stretch, but get his percentage back in line. He was 3 for 5 in the second half after a substandard first half. He was missing free throws. His percentages have tailed off a little bit of late. Nembhard, Oh, I mean, that might have been the first half might have been his worst half of the season, I think. And I didn't say that in jest. Like, it felt like at times he was just like, oh, like he needs a break, and they can't do it right now because McConnell's hurt. But first half, Andrew Nembhard made his only 2-pointer, 0 for 3 from deep, so 1 for 4 from the field, 2 assists, 4 turnovers, 2 fouls. He finishes with 6 turnovers and 5 fouls. He defended quickly fine enough in this game, but a really rough night for him, and they need him to be really stabilizing right now. He's running the second unit a lot of the time. He did not do well in this game in that way. Forgettable night for him, and that required them to turn to Ray J. Dennis for serious rotation minutes in the third quarter with Nembhard in foul trouble and not playing particularly well. I was surprised they went to Ray J. Dennis and not Jarris Walker. Very surprised, actually. I get why they went to a point guard, I suppose, given that a point guard specifically was in foul trouble. Dennis with 2 fouls that did not last very long. That might have been the early fourth quarter. Then they turned right back to Haliburton, and that stabilized the game. But they needed Nembhard to be better. They need him to step up, especially on the offensive end, running that second unit. And like, this is noteworthy stuff, both for this year and for the future. Like, if people are going to say, talking about the rotation, and like if McConnell's not a part of it because Nembhard's the backup point guard, so they could play Jarris, like they need that to go better, and it hasn't so far. Since that injury, Toppin really struggled from the field, as did Mathurin. Those two combined 5 for 14, missed all 8 of their threes. Some of that was just missing jumpers, right? I felt like the Pacers missed a lot. I felt like the Pacers shot terrible in this game, and they were 15 of 37 from 3, which is pretty good. But 12 of those makes were the two guys I've already talked about, and Haliburton and Turner. A lot of other guys struggled there. Mathurin was okay. He finished with 10 points and was +9. I thought he played pretty good defense. He got to the rim a few important times. His 4 free throw attempts led, I believe, everyone in the game. Oh, RJ Barrett had 5, right? So, like, he still did some good stuff, but him and Toppin really struggled to put the ball in the basket. Thomas Bryant's misleading stats. He had 2 post-up buckets and a rebound late. He had 3 turnovers and struggled a little bit with consistency in this game. Like, a lot of really, like, clunky, gross, disconnected, what's going on kind of play from the Pacers. And it looked smoother than it did because Haliburton was that good and he has the ball that much. So it looked like there were a lot of very successful possessions. They closed the first half really well, so they had a nice cushion in the second half. They made it, feel comfortable as they were playing bad and figuring stuff out. They played better in the second half than in the first half. And their defense papered over a lot of not good offense, but they closed the game well and separated themselves, but they did not. This was not a good performance in large part, I think, from the Pacers. They played against a Scotty Barnesless Raptors and took advantage of that, but they've got to figure out this turnover stuff. I mean, I think that's 36 in their last 2 games. That's not who they are. That's not how they win. That's got to be better. And that was not on the guy, Haliburton, that has the ball a lot, right? That was a lot of other guys who were, the Raptors are pretty good at forcing turnovers. They have a lot of length. They do give the Pacers trouble in that way, but they were too rushed at times. They were making some sloppy passes, stepping out of bounds on the side. I hate those ones. They've got to work on that 10 from Nembhard and Nesmith combined in this game. Only 4 offensive rebounds, right? They weren't hammering the glass in an effective way. They couldn't get any shooting from anybody besides those 2 guys I mentioned earlier, plus Nesmith. They just weren't playing particularly well. Not a ton of balance. They weren't passing the way they hoped to in this one. But they took 81 shots. Like, that speaks to their turnovers and the pace of this game. That was their tied for their 4th fewest shots in a game this year. And it was the first time they've been at 81 shots or fewer without taking 20 free throws. So a very, very poor flow game from them on the offensive end. Thankfully for them, Tyrese Haliburton was sensational. Their defense was quite good. Myles Turner was raining in the threes. And this game will be remembered as a 20-point win that I just said they didn't play very well in. That says a lot about their level, right? If they would not win by 20 last year on a game they played poorly, and they have had wins of late this month and late last month where they played bad and won. Like, this is progress from them in that way, but this was the ugliest 20-point win you're ever going to see, and yet it will be a 20-point win, 3-1 during their homestand, still 4th in the East. Pistons keep rolling. Bucks are playing good. It's going to be a fun race for that 4, 5, 6 down the stretch of the season. And we'll cover it all right here on Locked On Pacers tomorrow. A guest, hopefully. Man, I actually asked people this time. I promise you will not just hear me forever on this podcast. And then Saturday, it will be me talking Pacers Heat, Pacers' first road game post All-Star break, chance to win the tiebreaker over the Heat and really put that separation on the play-in tournament and avoiding that this year. We'll have it all right here on Locked On Pacers. I'll have some stories coming out about Haliburton's post All-Star break play, about the Pacers open roster spot, and plenty more. You can find that in Forbes. You can find me on Twitter at Tony R. East, and this podcast is there at Locked On Pacers. And I'm on Blue Sky as well at Tony R. East. Thank you guys for listening today. Hope you enjoyed this breakdown of Pacers Raptors. Back tomorrow talking more Pacers. Till then, everybody have a wonderful day.